What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and today we've previously in a video talked about what I think the most overrated team in the NFL was. I had a runner-up that was in the AFC and an eventual winner that was in the NFC. So if you guys haven't seen that, I'm not going to spoil it for you. You can go stumble upon that yourself. But today, you got to do the inverse of that. Going into the 2018-2019 season, who do I have as my most underrated team? And it just so happens I have the runner-up in the NFC and the projected so-called be-all, end-all underrated team in the AFC. So first of all, jumping out, we're talking about the Chicago Bears. Now, they're the runner-up. I do think the Bears are drastically going to be different. I love all the signs. I like Matt Nagy as head coach. I like getting Mark Helfrich, former Oregon head coach, in there. That offense is going to be very, very good. I think Mitchell Trubisky will be able to take a big leap into his year number 2. I actually said after the Chicago Bears played the Philadelphia Eagles, a game which the Eagles pretty much dominated, I was like, you could see that this Chicago's Bear team had some depth, they had some potential. They just really need to get rid of John Fox and bring in someone that had a QB mindset that could, in reality, if you're a Bears fan, you want to try to hope that your team can be the Philadelphia Eagles of next season because they have the similar pieces. Maybe not as good of a, well, definitely not as good as a defense, definitely not as good as depth, but I think in key positions, the upside and the growth can very much be there. Like I said, it starts with Mitchell Trubisky. I think having Nagy and Helfrich there are definitely going to help out his game. Then when you look at the running backs, you got Jordan Howard, you got Tariq Cohen. I mean, there you go. That is, a really good 1-2 punch, one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFC. Offensive line is, pretty decent. I assume you're going to have, I'm still not a believer in their tackles, to be completely honest with you, but Kyle Long, Cody Whitehair, they drafted James Daniels in the second round. That's a really strong interior at wide receiver where they had no weapons at all last season. They get Allen Robinson in the Jags. You got Taylor Gabriel from the Falcons. You drafted Anthony Miller in the second round. You still got, Kevin White, who for some reason, if he can stay healthy, he might prove to be that same type of player that they got when they drafted him in the first round in 2015. So offensively, a lot's going upside. You get Mr. Philly Special himself, Trey Burton from the Philadelphia Eagles. I can tell you right now, not worth the money you paid him, but he is a legitimate starting tight end in the National Football League, a great receiver. So offensively, I expect them to be in a lot of games. Defensively, again, they're solid. They're a solid defensive team. Their front three is, you got Akeem Hicks as a proven playmaker, and you got some guys with some upside. In the linebacking core, again, you added Roquan Smith, you get Danny Trevathan, Leonard Floyd, if he comes back healthy, looks like he was getting on. Secondary, Amuka Mara, Bryce Callahan, Kyle Fuller, those guys are solid. You got Adrian Amos and Eddie Jackson, both graded out well for Pro Football Focus. So, all in all, the defense is solid to above average with some big playmakers, but I think the offense is really going to take another big step. The only reason why I can't have them be my true underdog team is because of the division they play in. They are still just not as good. Unless injuries could drastically change the outlook of any team. But the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, the Vikings with the top to bottom depth that they have, it's going to be really, really tough for Chicago to win that division, to even get in there for the wild card. But I expect from a product that we saw in 2017 to what we see in 2018, the Bears are going to be drastically better and more competitive. However, the team that is getting the most underrated tag belongs in the AFC West, and it is the LA Chargers. They are a team that, to be completely honest, you constantly get slept on. Their quarterback constantly gets slept on. Their playmakers constantly get slept on. And I think not enough people talk about how good their defense is. So we've got to start out with, there's the curse, I would like to say. The curse of the Chargers. They always seem to get a season-ending injury, a couple of them, before the season even starts. And this year's no different. Hunter Henry, who is expected to make a massive leap and, get into that top 10 tight end conversation, which if he's not already there, I think he's probably a fringe top 10 tight end right now. Towards ACL, he's done for the year. I don't know what they're going to do at the tight end spot. They could look at bringing back Antonio Gates, maybe convince Martellus Bennett to come out of retirement. Or, Julius Thomas could make sense from a receiving option. Kobe Fleener. But ultimately, it is a big loss, but it's still top to bottom. They are my underrated team. You have Phillip Rivers, a guy that's probably going to go to the MVP consistently, even though he has the ugliest throwing motion. People gave so much shit to Tim Tebow for his ugly throwing motion. I would take Tim Tebow's throwing motion over Phillip Rivers. Anyways, Rivers is a guy that can consistently get you fringe 30 touchdowns and, 4,000 plus yards. The turnovers can be an issue for Phillip Rivers, I think, because he throws it so much. And, until, maybe they'll take a bigger step with Anthony Lynn, who was a running backs coach, and, run the ball more with Melvin Gordon and have him throw it, not, 500, almost 600 times a season, get it closer to the 475 range. You might see the less turnovers for Phillip Rivers, but a lot of times the turnovers came because they'd abandon the run and they just straight up just start slinging it. And once they find that balance, I think you're going to find the great late form of Phillip Rivers, the late career form, but still Phillip Rivers can get it done with any other quarterbacks, at least within his division, which is ultimately why I give the Chargers an edge, because I think they're much more likely to compete in the West than the Bears will in the NFC North. So you want to take a gander at the running back, huh? Melvin Gordon is a bona fide stud. 1,600 yards from scrimmage last year, 12 rushing touchdowns. He can catch. He had almost 60 receptions. He can run between the tackles. He's a great athlete. You got Austin Eckler, undrafted guy, had 500 yards, 5 TDs, able to kind of be that change of pace back. You had, some busts. I don't think Travis Benjamin's lived up to his contract, but he's still a guy that can get you 500-600 yards a season. You got Keenan Allen, who has struggled with injury, but when he's healthy, he's a monster, man. 102 catches, 1,400 yards, 6 TDs. He really does fill in that Antonio Brown role that you could just feed him the ball. He's a guy that gets stronger with the amount of touches he gets throughout a season, and that's usually something it's kind of like a I don't know what the proper word would be, because he's a guy that has struggled with injuries, but you want him to constantly get the ball and get, obviously with that you get hit a lot more, but that's his strength, and when healthy, he is a monster. You got Tyrell Williams, your height, weight, speed guy on the outside, 6'4", that can run. He's a guy that got 700 yards last year, 4 TDs. I expect an even bigger season. You got Mike Williams, who invested a first-round pick in. Really, really, really good jump ball specialist. And now you're going to get a, pretty much we'll say he redshirted as a rookie. Now you're getting a guy that, for argument's sake, because he didn't really play last year, I think only had one start. If he came out in this year's draft, for example, it would have definitely still been a first-round talent. So, weapons are there, man. And once they figure out the tight end spot, which, look at what Hunter Henry did last year. You obviously had the balance between him and Antonio Gates. But ultimately, Hunter Henry had 45 catches for, we'll round up 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's somewhat replaceable. Obviously, you want him on the team, but it's not like he was a Gronk or a guy that was, Zach Ertz or Travis Kelce or Delaney Walker, like guys that are vital parts of their offense that it's going to be possible for one guy to come in and replace that. I mean, I could see Kobe Fleener coming in and having 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. So, they can move on from Hunter Henry this season and not be like, oh, we're done now. We're just, rocked right from the gate. So there you go. Offense is good. Defense is where it gets absolutely absurd and where the underrated factor comes in. So their front, you have Joey Bosa, you have Melvin Ingram. Those guys there, maybe I don't want to say top, because I don't really, I'm not in a broad thinking space right now to just think of every other defensive end pairing, but top 5. They are top 5 defensive end pairing in football. 12.5 sacks last year for Joey Bosa, 4 forced fumbles, 10.5 sacks from Melvin Ingram. Then on the interior, you come in, you got veterans. That's when your veteran presence steps up. You got Brandon Mebane, who, for 16 games, nose tackle, good against the run. And then, ultimately, Corey Lugier, I'm always calling him that. He got suspension, a little bit of suspension, but when he comes back, he's another guy that can play at a very high level. No real weakness once he comes back into the lineup. You look at the linebacking core. Personally, I'm a fan of linebacking core. I know it was a spot that a lot of people kept saying they need to improve, they need to improve, they need to improve. I personally think having Jatavis Brown and Denzel Perryman healthy, I like that. 2 athletic linebackers, guys that can go sideline to sideline. Perryman, you get a little bit more grit. He's a big hitter. I think those guys can actually pull it all together. And then when you look into the secondary, you have Casey Hayward, who might be right in that echelon of the top corner in football. He had 4 picks, 22 pass deflections last season, 40 tackles. This was a secondary that was so good they let the guy who had the most picks on their team, Trey Boston with 5, just walk because they're happy with what they had. You have Trevor Williams, another small school guy, 13 pass deflections, 2 picks, graded up well from Pro Football Focus. You have Desmond King, which maybe is why they let Trey Boston move on from. I know he did have 4 sacks from the nickel, but you could probably put Desmond King there and start him at free safety. That's where a lot of people had him when he was coming out of Iowa, because he didn't think he had the athletic talent to play at the cornerback spot. But free safety or not, having him play nickel, either way, he's an absolute stud that's only going to get better. You have Jalil Adai, who, again, another productive player, grades out well from Pro Football Focus at strong safety. He had almost 100 tackles last year. That is a really, really strong secondary. And then, ultimately, what makes you a sleeper team is I really feel like, you could say teams that are going to be better from last year to this year, like the 49ers or the Bears. But I think to make you a real sleeper team, you have to have a legitimate shot at going into the playoffs and having a deep playoff run, a Cinderella run, like the Philadelphia Eagles. And I just think that the NFC is too tough. you gotta look at the AFC. And when you look at the AFC, what division could debatably be the most wide open this year? And I think it's gonna be the West. You have the entire culture change at the Raiders. The Raiders could be very good. The Raiders very well could have found themselves on this list. John Gruden, Derek Carr. I mean, Derek Carr, I had him when I made the most underrated quarterbacks. He was my most underrated quarterback. They have good defense, but I think with the scheme change on the defensive side, they'll be moving from a 3-4, I believe, to a 4-3. They kind of failed to address the linebacking spot. They still have some holes. So I just think I'm more comfortable saying the Chargers will finish ahead of the Raiders right now. You have the Denver Broncos, a team that may just be a quarterback away from challenging for the Super Bowl, or at least challenging for the AFC title. You get Case Keenum, a guy that, if he can come in, use essentially the same type of team scheme and team built around him like he had in Minnesota, a team that's pretty much well made and ready to go for that run. They just need that quarterback. If he can come in and do it with Denver, I mean, they're going to be competitive, but there still is some downside there. The offensive line's not particularly strong, and they're an aging team, especially at wide receiver, with Sanders and Demaryius Thomas getting to that 30, and 30 is a make or break for wide receivers. Not every wide receiver can be a Larry Fitzgerald and get better with age. Sometimes they have a bad drop-off. Not saying that's the case, but it is a worry there. And then you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, brand new quarterback. You have Patty Mahomes. They're gambling on that rookie quarterback being able to get him done. That's why I mentioned the Chiefs when I talked about overrated teams, because yes, they have Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt. You have Eric Berry. But you make head-scratching decisions like letting Marcus Peters walk when you have no immediate successor there. You have a particularly weak draft by all accounts, and you still have a lot of missing pieces. So worst case scenario, they're going to be terrible. Best case scenario, it's questionable what the Chiefs are going to look like. So I think that the AFC West is completely wide open, and no one's really talking about the Chargers. So that, in my opinion, makes them the most underrated team in football. You guys agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comment section below. Do you have your own underrated team? Let me know. Defend why. Maybe you can change my opinion. And that does it for me here today, guys. So if it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.